I'm the Scale Model Geek, and I had a thought. What if humans aren't the first ones to arrive on Mars? And with that in mind, I came up with this little cool diorama. Now I headed over to my favourite little website for 3D files and found a couple of different astronauts. Now I had a choice, I think he's a Russian astronaut on the right, on the left, and the other dude about to happen on the left is an escape suit. I imported the files into a piece of software called Blender, and with the modifications, I did create some modified backpacks as well. I found them on Thingiverse, and also added a couple of new helmets to both of the figures. I was able to repose them slightly and turn the heads, so I had one looking straight ahead and another one looking to the left. And then I printed out both figures. With those printed, it gave me a choice of which one I preferred, seeing it in real life. And I went with the escape suit version because they felt a bit more modern. Also on Thingiverse, I found this awesome looking statue. Didn't have to do a single thing to this one, all I did was print it, no modifications. And just like any other kit or resin print, there's a bit of preparation to do. Because I do so much resin printing and also sanding, I figured I need a device that helps me remove the dust, because resin dust is extremely fine and gets everywhere. I designed this vacuum attachment, and all it is just a plate that sits on my bench and sucks up all the dust. Fantastic little device, I think. And it works extremely well, which is great. Now this is the little hole that I created for the print, so when I print it, the resin inside the hollow figure has somewhere to escape. Now I'm giving the whole thing a base coat of black because I'm going to use some chameleon paints. Now that works best if the figures are black. And in this case for the astronaut I'm doing some zenithal lighting, so base color of black and then some highlights with this Liquitex titanium white, and just spray from one angle and that gives you your highlights and your shadows. Now I use this technique quite a lot because it saves so much time, and then I don't have to do so much highlighting with brushes a bit later on. Now for the statue I'm using a combination of this light grey and the white grey because I didn't have just the right shade that I needed. This is the first time I'm using this chameleon paint with highlights, so I'm not really sure how well that's going to turn out. Fingers crossed it all comes out well, so let's see how well it comes out. Now this is the paint I'm using from Green Stuff Worlds, the Color Shift Metal. This is a pretty cool color, the dark blue. The color shift in this particular color starts off with a purple and goes to a blue. Now if you look very carefully, the dark areas tend to turn the blue color. The lighter areas are more of a purpley color. It's really interesting. Seems to be working, but maybe my highlights were maybe a bit too bright or too light. There's the final thing, and it looks pretty awesome. I'm really happy with that. And so right about here I thought, okay, I might do some more dry brushing on it. And I'm using some of this light metal, which is a dry brushing paint from Ammo. I just hit some of the edges, and very lightly. I'm hoping this adds just a bit more depth to the statue. It also turned out to be a pretty good technique because it brought out quite a lot of the detail. And there's the final finish, and you can see the colours are very subtle. But they're there, you can see the colour change. Now for the spaceman, orange fire is the base colour for the spacesuit. And took about 3 coats of this to get a fairly nice coverage without losing the shading. The top section of the suit I first painted in white because I'm going to paint it in red. You can't really paint red on top of yellow because it doesn't come out very well. So I needed to do that first, the white. Then a few of the highlights around the wrists and the helmet collar, and also his boots, which I hadn't done in this part of the video. And then for all the buckles I added some silver paint. Now I decided to paint the visor of the helmet in this chrome metal finish. Now I've used this stuff a couple times before, most prominently in my Terminator figure, which was the very first video I ever did on this channel, and it came up really well, but for some reason in this build I ran into a few problems. I just couldn't get it even. No matter how many coats I tried, putting on a little bit thicker, a little bit thinner, I just could not get that even finish. So I kind of got through it, then moved on to the base. Some foam here, and already filled up the edges with some general purpose putty. And I'm just building the cliff face of this up with some, well, leftover foam from previous builds. PVA glue, the good old wood glue, to hold it all together. Here all I'm doing is just breaking up some small pieces and kind of arranging them so it kind of looks like a cliff face, and also some of the rocks that blend into the terrain. I also need to cut out a hole in the cliff face, simply because I need somewhere to the statue to go into, and it needs to look like it's been there a very long time and the terrain's built up around the statue. The alien statue. We never know, we never find out how long it's been there, but a while. There it is, and I'm pretty happy with the configuration of that. It looks good. With that all done, it's time to cover the whole thing with a bit of plaster of Paris. And that stuff's really cheap. I think it's like $14 for a kilo from Bunnings here in Australia. It's not expensive at all, really easy to use. Just add water to the mixture and get it to the consistency that you need. Now I did make a bit of a boo here. I normally cover the whole base here with some PVA glue. What that does, not only does it seal the foam, but it also creates a adhesion barrier for the plaster of Paris. Because I didn't do this, when the plaster of Paris actually dried, some of it started to flake off. So a bit of a problem, but once I put the paint on there and all those layers, it kind of held it together. But please remember, unlike I did this time, some PVA coating. And then a bit of hot glue to keep the statue into place. Now back onto the foam, and just broke up some small pieces to fill up the areas that were exposed because of the size of the hole. In retrospect, I probably should have exposed a bit more of the statue around the bottom, just to give it that sense of more height. And once that glue dried, then went in with some more plaster of Paris and filled it all up. And I think that turned out rather well. Pretty happy with that. With that all done and all dried and solid, it was then onto the painting phase. Now for the base colour, I'm using a bit of this German red brown, which seems to be used a lot in my builds. It seems to be everywhere, this colour. So with the airbrush, to make this job a lot quicker, I went through the whole base. Nice, well, I was about to say nice even coat it was, and I kind of made it a bit mottled, so some areas it was darker and a little bit other areas a little bit lighter, just to add a bit of visual interest to it. And from this angle you can see what I mean about it needing more height in the statue. If I had less terrain at the bottom of it, it would have made it look a lot taller. Talking about terrain, I'm about to add some life forms, a bit of grass to the terrain. And you may say, geek, but there is no life on Mars. Well, because of this alien statue, it's created an anomaly within that area. This alien entity has kick-started life on the planet Mars. After toning down the green grass to a more reddish look to it, I then moved on to some dry brushing again with this particular colour called Earth, and just hit all the highlights. And I also hit the grassy areas with a colour called Light Brick, also from Ammo. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel and share the video. Your support is always appreciated. Off camera, headed over back to Thingiverse and downloaded a whole bunch of alien life forms or plants, and then printed them out. And as you can see, I printed out quite a few just to give me a variety, and I like to do a lot at one time. That way, later on, if I need them, I already have them. And there's such a variety of these really cool alien plants. Now I've got a piece of balsa wood there with some double-sided tape on there, and just stuck the little plants to that. Now the colours I'm using for these little life forms, they will be toned down a bit later on once I get into the weathering process and the highlighting process, so they won't be so in your face. At this stage I'm also highlighting some of those plants with some lighter blue on top of the purple. To tone them down, like I said, I'm using some of this black wash, and that'll bring out some of the details as well. To make the wash flow better, a quick spritz of water, and then a nice generous application of some of that black wash. Now to add a bit more alien feel to it, I'm using some more of this colour shift. This time it's the Mystic Gold, and that kind of blends from, I think, a green to a gold. And I'm just doing this, again, like I always say in a lot of my videos, a bit of visual interest to it. And to put everything into place, some super glue. And in the end, I didn't end up using all the varieties of plants. I kind of kept it simple. I didn't want to overdo it and make it too busy, because the focus needs to be on the statue and the astronauts. Speaking of astronauts, once again, the super glue is a big help here. And straight onto the base. And then, for the final touch, I just ground down some pastel chalk on some sandpaper, and using a brush, a very soft brush, just dabbed it all over the base. And this toned down the reddiness of the base colour, which was that red-brown, rather the German red-brown. And this is it, all done. The project is finished, and it's come up rather well. I'm really happy with that. It's always refreshing just to do a simple, quick build. And on that note, let's check out the final hero videos. Thank you so much for checking out this particular build. If you really enjoyed it, go and check out a couple of my other videos. They were a lot of fun to build. And again, thank you very much for sticking around.